Hi everyone, and welcome to Banana Code's free programming tutorial. Today we will talk about the C++ language, a prevalent old language by Bjarne Stroustrup in 1979 as an extension of the C language. Till now, it's used in a wide range of industries including software and game development, VR, robotics, and scientific computing. For example, C++ is used in well-known operating systems such as Mac OS and Windows, and even in some mobile operating systems such as iOS for the purpose of even the smallest details of the operating system to make it fast and efficient. C++ is also found in well-known applications such as Google, Netflix, YouTube, Adobe, and is some famous web browsers such as Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari and Opera. Now let's get started. For this tutorial, I will be working on Visual Studio 2022 IDE, which is similar to VS Code. So after I open the application, you click the Create Project button and search Console App C++. Then you have to insert the name of the project and make sure this project is saved in your local files. So after I save this project, we can now begin with programming. Now let's begin with some simple examples, and then we will begin with 3 major exercises. So, the first example is to find the area and perimeter for the rectangle form. Before we start solving this exercise, we must include the preprocessor instructions. We need to include the standard library such as IOStream to have the input and output operations. Then with the using namespace std command, all elements of the standard libraries can be declared. Now in the main function we need 2 variables to store the dimensions of the rectangle, and they can be of type integer, double or float. The reason why we need to declare the type of these variables x and y is because when the program is start executing, the variables must be stored in some memory, and that memory must know of what type of data is it stored. Now in order to initialize these variables, we need to use the cin command, which allows us to enter the values through the keyboard. After we insert these values, now we can use the cout command, where we can directly print the area and perimeter of this rectangle. And at the end write return 0, which means that the program is finished. After we test this program, you can see that it is printing the right solution. Okay, let's go to another example. The next example is to make a simple calculator, meaning to implement every arithmetic operations between 2 numbers. So now we need to add another variable called sign, which can be initialized in plus, minus, multiply, divide or module. Now after we initialize the 3 variables x, y, sign, now we can solve this example with switch case statement, or we can use the if conditional statement, so I will go with the 2 options. So if you want to solve with the if conditional statement, you need to check, for example, if sign value equals to plus, and if the condition is true, then you print the sum of these 2 numbers, or else you can use the else if blocks to check if it is one of the remaining operators. So if the first condition is not true, then I will go another condition, that is to check if value of sign variable is equal to minus, and if it is true it will print the subtraction between the values of the two integer variables. But if it is false, then I will check if it is about multiplier operator, and if that's true then it will print the product of two numbers. And if it is not multiplier operator, then I will check it is division operator, and if that condition is true then it will print the division between two numbers. If that is not true, then it is a module operator or else a invalid operation. Now let's test this program. Now let's go to the second solution. Similar to this is also the switch case, but the difference is that we need to insert one condition that checks every case statement we made, and if the condition finds the right case it will execute that case. So as you can see is very similar to previous solution, and it is much easier to write it instead of writing multiple if-else conditions. Now if we run this example, we see that the program works well and prints the right solution. Now only one example remains before we start with the exercises. The last example is print reverse Floyd's triangle, a triangle with the first natural numbers. So for this example we need to insert the number of rows in the variable n. Then in order to build this triangle we need to multiply n with n plus 1 divided by 2, to get the highest number of that triangle. After that we need to represent the number in matrix format, so we need to for loops that will iterate until variables I and j are less than 1. So in this example, the variables I and j are the coordinates of every number we place in that triangle. Okay, so let's test this program now. As you can see, it prints the solution in the right format. Now let's begin with more difficult exercises than the previous examples. Now the first exercise is about writing down pairs of integers like x and y to calculate the number of pairs whose sum of their numbers is equal to the value of z. And also to calculate that percentage. So now let's insert the preprocessing instructions including iomanip library in order to use the function setPrecision that is commonly used to set the floating point precision based on the parameter to this method. So for this exercise we need the integer variables x and y which represent the numbers of every pair we insert, then we have the counter variable initialized to 0 so that we can count the number of pairs which fulfills the condition and also to add the total variable to count all the pairs we insert. Now because we do not know how many times we insert new pairs, so we will go with the do-while loop because it can be executed at least once if the condition in the while is not true at the beginning. So in the do block we will initialize the values x and y with the values from our keyboard. And then we need to check if both variables have 0 value, and if that's true then we exit the do-while loop. But if it false then we will increment the value of total variable every time we insert new pair. And also we will increment the counter variable if the sum of x and y is equal to z. And now remains in the while condition to insert true. Because we want this loop to run every time we insert a new pair unless both x and y are equal to 0. So after that we need to print value of the counter variable, but before that we need to calculate the percentage that I will store it in a double variable called percentage. So to calculate this we need to multiply counter with 100.0 and then divide with total variable in order to cast the value from integer to double. And now it remains to print the percentage and the number of pairs and to test it to see if it works. As you can see, for z equal to 26 I have insert 3 pairs 12 with 14, minus 30 with 56 and 21 with 5 that match this condition. Now let's begin with the second exercise. In this exercise, we need to create a square image with height and width of m value that is greater than 2 using these characters. So as you can see, the edges of the image must end with a percent symbol, the first and the last row must be filled with email symbol and the rest of the image with dot symbol. So after we initialize the m value, we need to create 2 for loops in order to iterate to every element of this image. So, in the inner loop we need to check if I variable is between 0 and m-1 value and also for the j value in order to fill these elements in those coordinates with the dot symbol. If this condition is false, then we need to check if it is only the j variable that has value between 0 and m-1 value. And if that's true, then we can fill these elements in those coordinates with the email symbol. Or else we use the percent symbol. Now let's test it. It looks like it prints out the correct solution. Now let's solve the last exercise for today. In this exercise, we need to print all zigzag numbers for which it is true that for each pair of adjacent digits they are either greater or smaller in relation to each other. So from start, we need again integer variables like number for the number we input, then we need to have variables for 2 digits like digit 1 and digit 2, some temporary variable called TMP number where we store the value of number in order to use later on. And also we need integer variable option with values 1 or 0 to helps us to know if the digits of the number are in zigzag position. And also not to forget the Boolean variable flag that has values true or false, and we can use that variable to print all the valid numbers. Now because we don't how many times we input a number, we will use a while loop, and in that condition we will add cin command which we can use to check if the number is integer or not. In the while first we need to check if number is greater or equal to 10. And if so, then we will start initialize digit 1 and digit 2 with the last two digits of this number. And then we compare those digits, and based on that we initialize the option variable with the appropriate value. And also to mention that as we initialize those two-digit variables, we must not forget to divide the TMP number with 10 so that we can further checks on the remaining digits. If the last two digits are equal, then we do not print this number, or otherwise we create another while loop. And as you can see, the value of digit 2 is replaced in the variable digit 1 in order to check each pair of adjacent digits. If we find out that the digits are not in zigzag position, then we exit this inner loop and we do not print those numbers, but if those digits are in zigzag position, then we print only those numbers. So now let's test this program. If we use the numbers above as example, we can see that it print the correct numbers. Okay everyone, so that is all for today. In the next tutorials, we will be solving and discussing more difficult exercises in C++. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tutorials. See you next time.